Hello and welcome back to the Gold Advantage. We're here to cover the LCS. Scoot is with me again this week, which is great. Brought him back on board because basically we want to talk about Cloud9 versus Flyquest. It was the only match from this past week that actually mattered. If you tuned in, you would know Favorites basically won every single time, apart from CLG, who lost to Immortals. That's something we'll touch on as well in this week's episode. But it's going to be a very quick one because we're only 2 weeks into the LCS. The scheduling has really been good teams beating bad teams. It's a little bit tough to read into it and give some real insight. It's been, I don't want to say fun, maybe?
That's not the word.
Yeah.
It's been something, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Like, something's happened, along the way. I thought you were going to ask me, what I thought about the last week. And I had a monologue prepared about how... Well, not exactly a monologue. I just had some lines, prepared about, did I learn anything about the LCS this week? No, absolutely not. Like, literally, you can look across these matches. It's disgusting. It's like Liquid playing Golden Guardians. Of course they're going to win that. Terrible match. EG playing Dig. Of course they're going to win that. 100 Thieves playing TSM, who, has a fraudulent 2-0 week. I know I came on here. I was like, they could go 2-0 again. Obviously incorrect. Now, what we were right about is Immortals has to win eventually. Luckily, that happened in the CLG game. Actually, unluckily, because those were worse odds between the two games. But, they didn't really keep it close against Liquid. Actually, they kind of did. So,
look, right. I think the things we can infer, if we're going to save the Flyquest Cloud9 match analysis for later on, I think Team Liquid is just not looking good. Pyosik, world champion, is looking like pure shit. Summit is making some brain-dead teleports and plays. I really don't know what's going on with that team, but they are not looking... I still think they're probably the third best team in the LCS, but unfortunately that's kind of depressing more than exciting.
Yeah, we're going to need to see teams scale.
Preseason I was so excited. I thought, look, we're going to have 6 teams that are competitive, and it almost looks like we have one team that's competitive.
We have one team that's going to run the table this year.
Basically. I think CLG is looking pretty bad. Dig has had a somewhat tricky schedule, so maybe they're better than their 0-4 record shows, but I don't know that they're actually that good.
There's not much to buy into there.
No, there really
isn't. I feel like
isn't.
Armit, without some of the players that he's been playing with before, is a little fraudulent.
Yeah.
Jensen's not playing the best as well. I think their bot lane is a little suspect. Across the board, nothing really super impressive. I think Santorin's always going to be a good jungler, but we talked about this last week, your jungle's only as good as your lanes, and your job becomes so much more difficult when you're behind. Listen, there's not a ton of analysis on the week or on the league in general. I don't think you need to go through all that, but
I think 100 Thieves seem to be trending upwards.
Yes, so I would agree. I think Doublelift is coming to form a little bit, and that's big for him. He's top 3 ADC right now in the league in terms of kills, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
He's with Prince and FBI. They're top 3 in the league right now. I honestly, 100 Thieves makes a change away from FBI, continuing to do pretty well on his own. They've replaced him with somebody else that gets a ton of kills, and then Prince is far and above the best ADC in the league right now. It's not even close.
Yeah. I think EG had a pretty soft week. They went 2-0.
Yeah, it was soft as shit.
They're another team with 100 Thieves and EG. I think they're both trending in the right direction. I'm excited for this week because I think it's going to be the first time we see EG really tested. They've had now 2 weeks to warm up. If they lost in the first week, we can put it down to first week jitters or just coming together. This is now week 3. They should really... they have the momentum beneath them. They know how to play together. We'll see how they do. But look, let's get into it. Flyquest, Cloud9, this was the battle for first place. Both teams were sitting at the top of the table. Your beloved returning Cloud9 made one swap in mid lane. Everyone says it's an upgrade.
It was an upgrade.
I've been doubting it. Flyquest, put together by Papa Smithy, who I think must be the GOAT GM. He's really done wonders for every team he's joined. Look, they smashed them. Flyquest just demolished.
It wasn't close.
Not even,
It goes without saying, this is disappointing to see as a guy who supports Cloud9 all the time, but at the same time, really exciting to see on the Flyquest end. The 5-mans just come together, and their ability to create pressure all over the map. There wasn't a point where Cloud9 had a good decision that they could make. And honestly, the player that stood out the most was Spica. He was just causing trouble on the Amumu. It was disgusting. He was funneling people into Vikla for free kills the entire game. It was just awesome. And then I think on the back of that, when we talk about having 3-lane pressure the entire game, outside of maybe Impact, I think he was a little behind in CS, but like that's kind of the role he was playing early game.
Yeah.
Like obviously he's going to be behind. We've known him to be a rock for forever at this point. He did his role. He played his role really well, but like Blaber can't really go anywhere and he can't really do much outside of his own jungle. And I think he did make a lot of mistakes because he was trying to force. And so Cloud9 ends up in this hole and they just get 30-minute rolled. Like,
I mean, they got rolled in 30 minutes. They only got 2 kills and 1 turret.
2 kills, and one of them was just chasing down Spica in the river for no reason. Like, and losing the rest of the map. Yeah,
they needed something.
They lost control everywhere else while they're doing that. Like,
it was pretty rough. I think the thing that's also pretty crazy is that Prince had the 3rd lowest damage. Yeah. So the only one who did less was obviously the support. But Prince didn't really do anything. He was just around. This was Vikla, Impact, and Speaker just running Cloud9, essentially. And I think if they start to integrate Prince more and he starts to do more, they're just going to start pulling away even further.
As if they're not already pulling away. Like,
as if they're not already pulling away.
4-0, they just beat the best team.
I wasn't that impressed by Fudge. I think, look, I'm critical of Fudge because he's a great player. I really enjoyed him last year, but I felt that his ego started to grow a little bit too large, and he got to Worlds and he got just demolished.
Oh yeah, and now he has to play some of the same champs because the meta is somewhat similar to Worlds, and he's not like he doesn't look the best.
No,
right
and
now.
he's getting solo killed, and in instances where I'm like, I don't know, dude. I don't think you need to take that challenge. You don't need to take that fight. There's not really a huge advantage.
I'm thinking about him getting dragged under tower by Impact and just one-on-one, if that's what you're calling out.
It is exactly what I'm calling out, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was huge ego play. It was just unbelievable.
Massive.
And Impact just bodied him.
He just completely did.
Like, I think part of this comp is expecting Fudge to carry a little bit and be way, way more ahead, and expecting Blaber to work off of that. But also, I think, like, the Akali pick with this comp is a little weird to me. I would expect, like, a little more pace behind it. Like, if you're going to pick Akali, you need to be ready to just steamroll and, like, start moving. And I think you need a lot more movement around your team just as well. Because Akali's, like, very in and out of fights. Like, you're either there or you're not.
Jumping in, destroying someone. But this is what I mean also. It's like, even if she jumped in and killed Prince, they didn't really need him. Yeah, the drafts just weren't. Look, I think the drafts and then just the execution, and that's something we've seen across different leagues. And we'll be releasing the LEC episode later this week. Likely Big Money Blitz will be back for that one. But there's in the West, you have some teams that get very kill hungry without necessarily having an objective behind those kills. They just go for the kills for the sake of the kills. And I think that's sometimes a little bit what happens here. It's disappointing. I expected a lot more from Cloud9. It's a real shame to kind of see this situation. I think Flyquest right now is sitting head and shoulders above everyone else. I would still put Cloud9 in second place, and I think there's a big jump between them and EG, and I guess 100 Thieves is tied for second, but I'd put EG above 100 Thieves, and I think Cloud9 is significantly better than EG. But, you know, it also remains to be seen, and unfortunately, we're going to see that this week.
The final thing I want to say is just like, I don't know, the LCS this year for me is just shining a light on almost how bad just generally this region's macro is like, across the board. Because like the reason why so many LCK series are close and the reason why you get so many 2-1s and why a best of 3 is necessary is because these teams have a very high knowledge of like macro and how to cross map and everything along those lines. But you see LCS teams taking fights for almost no reason and not fighting at like other times where they should. Like they don't fight for Shelly a lot, which is not something that you see in Korea. You see them fight like almost every game for it, or at least posture like they're going to. And like that doesn't happen a ton in the LCS. I feel like you get earlier engagement, right? And you start to warm up a little bit into the game. Not only that, but like you're creating pressure around the map and you get different kind of states in like mid and top in that situation from the fight. Like obviously there's damage done, but like a lot of teams are very resistant to fighting, and the other teams you said are like super kill hungry for no reason, but the kills almost mean nothing in that. But
even the teams that are resistant to fighting, they're like resistant to it at the wrong times. And I think this is something, you know, your example of the Rift Herald is a perfect one. And I would just add to that dragon fights. When you look at the LCK or LPL, if they're contesting a dragon, they are contesting that dragon. But if they're not going to contest it, they don't go hang around the dragon pit for no reason. They suddenly, you see them, they suddenly start pushing lanes really hard and they take 1-2 towers because they're like, okay, we'll give you this dragon, but you're going to pay for it. Whereas I feel like often in the LCS, they'll go in, a team will be behind, they'll go into dragon pit, pretend like they're going to fight,
and then just back off.
They're not going to because they'll lose. The other team will get dragon and they won't change, they won't take any towers or take any other advantages, and it's so annoying because also if you're going to fight, then fight. Like if you're like, okay, we need to make the play now because otherwise it's a slow death, take the fucking play.
Exactly.
I don't know, it is very frustrating. I think as I've been watching the LCK and LPL more, it's disappointing. I think also I just had such high hopes for the LCS this year. I really thought we'd have much more competition and I thought we'd have teams really pushing each other. And it just doesn't seem to be that way.
Yeah, I thought the top tier imports would kind of do it.
Yeah.
And push that pace a little bit more. And then obviously, you know, Piosik wins a world championship. He comes to America.
Yeah.
He's just not the same player anymore, apparently.
No, I don't know.
Well,
if
he might be the same player.
Piosik got very lucky. Prior to Worlds, Piosik was pretty bad.
I mean, he was on the verge of not starting. Yeah. Well, no, he didn't play. He didn't play in.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but
and then they finally made a decision.
Yeah. So.
Whatever. He won it. I didn't. So
exactly. Let's. I think let's jump into the matches. Things are so lopsided here. There's a couple of matches. I think there's the Flyquest EG. EG has a really tough schedule coming up because they're playing the number 1, number 2. So they're playing Flyquest and Cloud9. This is important though because, like I said, they've now got the momentum. They know how to play together. So we're going to see, can they actually compete with these top 2 teams, or are they just going to get bodied?
I mean, this is the real test for them. Like, this is the first real test for this roster. And I think you and I talked about it a little bit beforehand, but, like, having the record that they have right now is honestly almost a little bit unacceptable. However, a lot of that happened week 1. You can say it's jitters, like not knowing how to play together. And then you roll into this. Like last week, they go 2-0.
Yeah.
They've learned how to play together enough. So, like...
They've gotten better. They went 1-1 week 1. It looked shaky. Week 2, they're looking better. I still think it looks a bit shaky. Flyquest is 1.52. EG is a 2.35. So the odds are very good on EG's side. Maybe it's worth a taste. I'm going to wait for draft. I need to see, because if they draft something bad, I won't trust them with that. I'm not going to throw money away. But if they get a good draft, sure, I'll grab it. But I do think Flyquest is going to win. I think it's a Cloud9 matchup that I'm actually looking at, because Cloud9 got rolled by Flyquest. So now this is Cloud9's second biggest test, really.
Yeah. This is your third place team right now.
Exactly. And which of them is going to be a third place team? So EG at 1.92 and Cloud9 at 1.78. I think both of these odds are really good. As I always say, draft. I want to see the drafts, because some of the NA drafts can be really weird.
This is going to be a little bit influenced by what happens in the EG Flyquest game, obviously, and the result of that and how bad it actually is, depending on where you think it's going to fall.
Yeah.
In theory, Flyquest should roll EG the same way that they rolled Cloud9, and if you see a standard draft, I would expect that, like, across the board. And also, if you see a standard draft, I would immediately hammer the Flyquest kill spread, because the way they play the game and the control that they have over the map, they don't give up a lot of kills, and they do get enough to win the game. And that usually equalizes into a pretty wide spread. So whatever they're getting, and I would assume it's not even that generous, it's going to be solid in that game as well.
I mean, you could even go for, a minus...
6.5 is probably pretty good.
I mean, I even think minus 7.5.
Yeah, minus 6.5, minus 7.5, somewhere in there is probably going to be pretty good. Now, that's going to influence the EG Cloud9 odds, and if you think EG is going to get rolled the same way, I would expect Cloud9 to have slightly worse odds than they have now if you're planning on betting on them. So, I would take that. I do think that Cloud9 will rebound and beat EG here, unfortunately for them. EG might be staring down an 0-2 week. I'm probably going to take Cloud9 at current odds. Like, I think it's great.
I can't disagree with that. I think you've made very good points there. I would watch the draft, like I said, but I wouldn't be surprised if EG comes out 0-2. I also wouldn't, I think if I really had to put money either way, I would say it's 1-1. That Flyquest match, I actually think it's good that they're getting the Flyquest match out of the way first, because that might help expose some of the weaknesses that they have, and they can fix it for Cloud9, and they saw how Flyquest beat Cloud9. It gives them some good info, some good intel, and they can prepare for that second match. So.
One day to fix it seems pretty quick, to be fair.
It does. Just a bit.
Like, if they win, now you're going to have that to talk about next week with Chris. I probably won't be here, but we'll see.
Maybe.
Listen, you could be right. I'll let you have it. I'll let you have your talking point. I think,
all right.
Listen, my final thing here.
Yeah, go for it.
Dignitas over Team Liquid. It's slept on. 0-4 team. They are, I think, a better roster than their record shows, and they've had the toughest opening schedule, as you said. TL doesn't look like super solid. I don't think this is a 2.9 situation. Like, this isn't Immortals. No. I think Immortals is a significantly worse team. Or Golden Guardians, also a significantly worse team. Like, I think the value here is great. So that, I'm taking all that.
That's actually like the perfect segue into, I want to highlight Immortals and Golden Guardians schedule this week. So Golden Guardians facing off against CLG. They are currently at a 2.7. Like I said, I don't think CLG is that good at the moment. I think they're struggling. And a 1.42 is way too generous for CLG. I would say the same thing for Immortals and versus Dig. I know what we're saying about Dig having a tougher schedule, but they've also really looked pretty mediocre. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, Immortals just beat CLG. CLG had beaten Dig previously. So, law of transference here. Is the 2.4 on Immortals worth taking over Dig? Again, I'm going to kind of defer this until draft. I know it's boring. I've seen too many LCS teams draft something that is brain dead, and you just go, why? Why is this happening? You've just thrown away something perfect. So I don't want to throw my money down the drain. But the Immortals Golden Guardians matchup is another one. My final point, really, and this is like the match I actually really want to talk about, it's TL versus 100. I mean, I don't really want to. Maybe I'm too enthusiastic. I'm trying to make it hype. But TL versus 100 Thieves. Like, TL's at a 1.65. 100 Thieves are the underdogs at 2.1. But they're 100 Thieves is tied for second at the moment at a 3-1, whereas TL is a 2-2, and they literally just had the worst game I've probably ever seen against Golden Guardians. So I actually think this 100 Thieves team is trending upwards, and I would probably throw some money on the 210.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I think, like, it goes without saying, you sit there and you look at that TL roster and you're like, wow, this team should be really good, like, incredible. And I would be okay sitting here when they're 2-2 if I saw something last week where I was like, okay, it's starting to come together a little bit. And yes, they did rebound at 2-0. Like, that was big for them. But
it was.
It didn't look good. Like, there was nothing that I was like, oh, it's kind of clicking now. Like, this team's playing together. On the other hand, 100 Thieves started to play fairly well together last week. Like, I think they look solid. And Doublelift is coming back into form. He's a dangerous man when he's in form. We know that. So I'm going to agree wholeheartedly. Like, you take this 2.1 and you take it home to the bank pretty much.
Fingers crossed, we'll see. But that I definitely expect them to come away with a win there. I do not expect them to beat Flyquest. So that wraps it up. I don't really have anything else. Do you?
Yeah, one final shout, just because, I mean, I think CLG is not very good right now, and I think they're overvalued for sure. TSM coming off a tough week, 0-2. They did kind of get rolled in the second game. They got slammed. Pretty generous odds at 2.35 this week. I think that money line is solid currently.
I do not disagree with that. I mean, CLG got beaten by Immortals, so that's and TSM's losses were to EG and 100 Thieves. So two contenders for week. Second place at the moment. So I actually think that's a great bet. I'd probably take that as well. So
I appreciate your support on my pick.
And you know the support we really appreciate our audiences. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. You guys are the real heroes. But seriously, thanks guys for tuning in, watching us. We'd appreciate any likes and subscribes if you can throw them our way. I feel like if you've watched more than one episode, we kind of deserve that, like just jump in, give us that little boost. We need it.
Unless you're watching to hate.
That about wraps it up. Look, there's a bunch of links to our social media and everything in our description. I don't want to sell that too hard, but it's right there. Leave us a comment. Let us know if you think Cloud9 deserves better, or if they're actually not as good as we think they might be. And are you guys living on the EG train?
Hey, we're also forgetting T1 lost last week. Really rough week for me.
It was tough.
HLE,
It was tough.
That's just rough, man.
I know that was.
That can't happen. Sad week.
It's been a tough week for my betting. I'll tell you that much.
Okay, well, that's brutal.
In a hole because of the LCK and the LPL and some of the matches over there. All right. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you are deriving some enjoyment from the LCS, and hopefully it just gets better and teams kind of find their style and
give me best
momentum.
of threes, man. This best of one shit's gotta go. Gotta go.
I know. Gotta
catch you later.
All right. Tune in later this week for the LEC episode, and have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Peace out.